It's Warhammer here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the Northern Chaos Wastes playing as the forces of the Tomb Kings against the forces of the Wood Elves. And as you can see, things in this match kick off very, very quickly as my opponent decided to go for a bit of a cheeky Vanguard build. Now for my composition here, I decided to go with Grandpa Katep, the DJ himself, sitting here on a Casket of Souls. I figured if the Wood Elf player went for a more standoffish approach with perhaps Way Watchers or units like that, we would be able to use Grand Hierophant to bombard him at long range and slowly but surely whittle him down. Obviously, Katep himself is a pretty powerful caster. He does have, of course, Arcane Conduit, and he's able to spam out those Lord of Nakar spells, keep your troops in the fight, as well as, denying enemies use of their abilities with the Lich Staff. So I've brought the Lich Staff here. Actually, it did bring my Will Be Done, which probably wasn't really worth it on Katep, to be honest, but whatever, I forgot to take it off. Lich Staff, of course, to nuke enemy abilities whenever I cast, so as long as I'm casting these cheap spells, especially like Joff's Incantation of Cursed Blaze, Nero's Incantation of Protection, or Usurian's Incantation of Vengeance, I am removing my opponent's abilities and putting them back on cooldown. Usurian's Incantation of Vengeance is pretty strong here. I figured it could be good for the snares against Wild Riders, units like that, trying to get our backline. Nero's Incantation of Protection, of course, great to keep troops in the fight. And I really do like Joff's Incantation of Cursed Blaze, especially comboed with Nakar and Horsemen, of which I've got quite a few, since it makes, if you overcast it, it actually grants an anti-large bonus. Makes them very, very potent against lightly armored cav like Wild Riders, or as in this case we'll see, against someone like Orion. Besides that, we do, of course, have our Bound Sandstorm, which can, mess up some enemy squishy troops. Alongside him, well, there's no other heroes here, so a little different. Usually you'll see a lot of heroes with Tomb King play. But our front line is composed of Skeleton Spears, 2 units of them zoning away for our 3 units of Tomb Guard. Tomb Guard, very powerful in this matchup with their Silver Shields and excellent combat stats. They can trade tit for tat with just about any infantry the Woodies can field. Behind them, we do have 2 more units of Skeleton Spears, providing additional flank security. 2 Shopti Greatbows, who I think are really good in this matchup. I actually did deploy a little further back from the spawn zone here because I didn't want to get jumped immediately by, say, Way Watchers. And so we are deployed a little further back with these Shopti Greatbows, but they are a good counter to Way Watchers, to cavalry, to large single entities if your opponent happened to bring those. Finally, in the back, we do have the Eyes of the Desert, of course, Regiment of Renown version of the Sepulchral Stalkers. So these guys finally got their stock, I guess the Regiment of Renown always had stock, but they've got a big buff to their ranged missile attack, which now they've got 8 charges of it, and they can really shred big, easy target monsters, and they'll just really do well. And their combat stats aren't bad either. They don't look too impressive with melee attack 29, melee defense 38, but they do get a bonus versus large of 18. Makes them pretty solid in sustained combat, especially because they get charge defense versus large. Finally, Nakar and Horsemen really rounding out our defenses. We do have 2 highly veteran ones because I just had some gold left over, and I figured why not invest in Nakar and Horsemen. They're an excellent unit against the Wood Elves because they trade really well into Wild Riders, especially with buffs from Grand Hierophant. Now, for my opponent, who was immediately shunning away with me, he went with a super Vanguard heavy build. 2 Glade Riders, 1 with Hagman tips in the very back here. Immediately kicking off Horn of the Wild Hunt to get that nice beefy charge bonus. Front line composed of a mix of Dryads as well as the Wardens of Citadel, Regiment of Renown here in the center. Very powerful Vanguard force, and Dryads will mulch the majority of Tomb King infantry in the long grind. Not so with the Tomb Guard, though. Tomb Guard is going to be quite the force against them. And those 2 Deepwood Scouts with Switchover Shards are kind of wasting their ammo right now on the Spearmen with shields, and this is why I put the Spearmen out here, to soak shots for the Tomb Guard. Because while Tomb Guard's cheapish, they're not that cheap. For the Command Corps, my opponent did go with a Branch Wraith as well as Orion, the King in the Woods, right in here with his full kit. He does have the Horn of the Wild Hunt. He's got Hounds of Orion. Actually, he didn't bring the Talon of Kurnus, so I lied. He didn't bring his full kit, but he does have the Hounds of Orion to mess up my squishy troops, and Cloak of Isha to make him an absolute beefcake when he drops to low HP. Makes him near unkillable for a lot of stuff. On the flanks, we do have more Wild Riders with shields, looking to pincer in and collapse on my formation. So it's going to be a tough situation with all these Nakar and Horsemen, as well as the Tomb Guard and the Spears and all those units. And the Branch Wraith for the spells did go with Awakening in the Wood, Earthblood, Penumbral Pendulum, as well as Melkoth's Miasma. So good selection there, I think. Spoken Mirror is perhaps a little bit of a waste, I think, as well as Foe Seeker. I don't think I'd bring it, but it's okay. Wardens of Citadel, they do take a beefy hit from Katep, who knocks them down by 12 models, but they are going to get here in the fight, and going to start mincing up these Skeleton Spearmen, dropping them to 0 armor. So Poor guys. Can't get a break. In the meantime, Orion here piling into our beloved Tomb Guard as the Wild Riders crash into the front line, running down these Tomb Guard pretty darn effectively. Unfortunately, though, these Glade Riders with Hagbane tips here are going to start taking a pounding from the Sneaky Snakes. Sepulchral Stalkers will trade very well into these guys here with their high speed, high damage per hit projectiles, especially since they themselves have 80 armor, so they can actually tank this fight pretty well. In the meantime, over here, we do see Wild Riders getting intercepted by the Necron Horsemen, and as our first spell of the game has gone down, you can tell because this swirling effect here on the banners is the result of the Lich Staff that Ketep has, debuffing those troops. Over here, the Necron Horsemen hit by a Joss Incantation of Cursed Blades. Wrong unit, should have hit the Chevron up unit to get more value, but what can you do? Chasing down the Wild Rider here, just tearing them a new one, and really dispatching with these elf fools pretty effectively. In the meantime, Orion does bust through and is going to push in on my Ushabti Greatbows, who I'm going to try to extricate right here. Definitely don't want to stay in that fight. Immediately losing Ushabti Greatbow to Orion. He's just an absolute menace there. But in the meantime, frontline fight is going pretty well. We're going to push our Tomb Guard forward to engage on my opponent's infantry. Spears bogging down those Dryads. Dryads don't have the best of stats, so it takes them a while to get anything done. Over here, the Eyes of the Desert forced off one unit of Glade Riders entirely. The other one did take a little bit of damage as well, not in the best of shape. And over here in the flanks, in the meantime, Necron Horsemen baited into the Dryads by the Wild Riders, but they have taken 5 models off, and we're actually going to pull back here. In the meantime, getting a nice little surround here on Orion as the final phase of the Realm of Souls goes down, providing my entire army with a massive chunk of heals. And, of course, this affects almost the entirety of my army. Only the Ushabti and I believe the Grand Hierophant here isn't getting more healing, which is pretty insane. So all these troops are recovering models, recovering HP, just running over backlines here. We've managed to remove one of those Wild Riders from play entirely. One of them is all the way out here. And the Dryad's actually losing here to the Tomb Guard. Tomb Guard very, very potent against them. And now they're going to be able to fall back, dispatch the rest of these Dryads. And the Wild Riders are way out of position. As you can see, another wave of that debuff coming in as well from Ketep. We are locking Orion away from the DJ because we do not want to get shot here. That's pretty darn important not to get our Lord sniped. But that continuous stream of cooldown duration is preventing my opponent from getting many spells off. He's not able to get key heals off. He's not able to get Melkos Miasma off. He's not able to get nice Penumbral Pendulums or anything of that nature. So it's a big boon. My opponent was actually surprised by this in this game. He wasn't sure what was going on, but that is what it was going on. Grand Hierophant Ketep being an absolute menace there, though forced to run for dear life here as Orion and the Switchriver Shards pound on him. In the meantime, though, over here, the Ushabti Ushabti are going to pursue the Switchriver Shards, forcing them away from the field as one of my units of Necron Horsemen detaches and pursues these guys, looking to shut them down. Unfortunately, a little bit of a miscast. I actually intended for it to go on these guys. Not entirely sure, or perhaps this unit over here, but weirdly enough, it ended up latching onto one of the models on these guys, and due to that, the Joss Incantation of Cursed Blades is going to help these guys out, help them mulch those Deepwood Scouts a little faster as our Ushabti do disintegrate. Now, in the meantime here, Orion is completely helpless as Ketep runs for dear life here, but we are able to sort of bounce back and forth, and the Necron Horsemen here are going to force the Wardens of Citadel back into the Tomb Guard. Nice little Hounds of Orion there goes down, but it wanders off and doesn't really do very much. In the meantime, these Wardens of Citadel just don't get very much done. They're constantly getting pounded from behind by the Tomb Guard, while at the same time being failing to really damage Grand Hierophant Ketep, so they're kind of wasted here. Orion doing an absolute number on my troops here. Necron Horsemen can't deal with him. Neither can the Eyes of the Desert, really. He has a decent melee defense nowadays of 40, and he still hasn't actually dropped into that Cloak of Isha stage, so he's actually going to be an absolute pain in the rear to try to kill. We also are no longer really casting very much, because one, there's not many targets for me to cast on, and two, I don't really want to waste my Winds of Magic. Though you can see we did cast another Joss Incantation of Cursed Blades here, once again delaying those cooldowns by another 15 seconds. Ryan slowly but surely getting whittled down as we run off these Dryads, the Necron Horsemen here, to clean up those Deepwood Scouts, and we force a Shatter on the Wood Elf army. One last Earthblood going in onto Orion before the Branch Wraith is forced to flee, and definitely quite the resounding sort of engagement there for the Tomb Kings. Now we're going to throw things into fast forward here because it's going to be a bit of Benny Hill action as Orion, the King in the Woods, just refuses to die. I don't really want to lose my Sneaky Snakes here, so I'm going to pull them back. Try to get some shots in there with the Ushabti Greatbows, but he just refusing to die. And that 44% ward save. Now Hounds of Orion annihilating my squishy troops there. Very nice cast. I completely forgot that he had that ability, and because I'm not casting, it's now coming off cooldown, and it hasn't been used this entire game, essentially. Now Orion here, just kind of slowly but surely getting torn apart in this pit fight here. You can see him just surrounded, fighting tooth and nail. We pull the snakes back in, looking to do a little more damage, take advantage of that anti-large bonus. And despite that, with that 44% ward save, he is just refusing to go down, fighting tooth and nail. But finally, he is really coming down to the end here, as we finally sort of expended so much of his HP. He's getting overwhelmed. 40 melee defense is good, but slowly but surely we're able to cycle charge him a bit. I am now realizing that I need to keep some of my troops safe, so I'm actually pulling them clear, keeping some of the troops in reserve on the flanks, far away from Orion's casting. He does get another cast off, but it's not going to do very much to most of these troops. Might delete the spears, but who really cares? Main thing is the Eyes of the Desert are still in there, and they are going to be putting the King in the Woods into his place with the help of those Necron Horsemen. Another spell going down there, Job's Incantation of Cursed Blades, buffing our boys up. And Orion is not going to be long for this world, although he may certainly be trying to do so. Takes the stab there from one of those massive Sepulchral Stalker halberds, and slowly but surely getting knocked out. You see just how long it's taking. Finally brought to his knees, and the Wood Elves are crushed. Pyrrhic victory! And it really might have been a Pyrrhic victory only because of Orion's last stand there. He was just an absolute monster. He's getting 137 kills. Absolute insanity. Much of that with his abilities as I blobbed up around him. And I think without that, it might not have actually been a Pyrrhic victory. But it was this. I think this match was cool because it got to exemplify just how much of a shutdown Ketep can be against enemy abilities. My opponent got that single Horn of the Wild Hunt off before the match started, because he casted that immediately when I hadn't cast any spells. But after that, he got very few abilities off. He got like one Earthblood on Orion, and I think that might have been his only spell that entire game. He got basically no magic off. He got no Penumbral Pendulums, no Melkoth's Miasma, nothing of that nature off on my army, which is just nuts. And it's because I have that constant stream of buffs and debuffs flying out continuously from Ketep. And keep in mind, when you're playing, you're obviously you're not just selecting your caster or your lord, and that is the only unit you're microing. You've got to be microing the rest of your army. So if you don't happen to be on top of your Branch Wraith or Orion at the moment when the cooldown reduction and when the cooldown is off, you might not get the opportunity to cast, and in the meantime your cooldown's been bumped up another 15 seconds. So it was just a very brutal effect there from Ketep, who was just cycling through those cheap buffs. Really, mostly it was the Job's Incantation of Cursed Blades, a dirt cheap spell. Mostly just cycling through those to continuously roid rage my troops, and at the same time deny my opponent magic, deny my opponent Orion getting those hounds off. And if those hounds had gotten some earlier casts, they might have helped clear out that front line, get rid of some of those skeleton spearmen that were bogging down the dryads, help eradicate some of the Necron horsemen, or maybe some of the Tomb Guard. And it just didn't happen. As for my actual army performance there, I was really pleased with Necron Horsemen. Keep in mind, this was a much smaller army, so 50 and 74 kills there, pretty impressive. The Ushabti Greatbows racked up a good chunk of kills, almost 80, but the majority of that was against Glade Riders. A handful was against like the Wild Riders and units like that, but not necessarily netting their value, I don't think, because just so much of the fire there was going to Glade Riders, who, while an annoying unit, are not as valuable as Ushabti Greatbows. So they probably didn't actually get their values worth. Certainly not these guys who got knocked out. Sepulchral Stalkers, though, doing an absolutely excellent job, zoning away the Glade Riders early on, helping bog down Orion, helping deal with the Wild Riders, helping stall out the Dryads at one point. Really good job. Necron Horsemen bouncing around, beating off Wild Riders. That sounds bad, but fighting off Wild Riders, running down Dryads, ricocheting between the Wardens of Cithral and Orion to keep Ketep safe and sound, and then eventually running down those Deepwood Scouts, just doing an excellent job ping-ponging all over the place. So I was really pretty pleased with them. Poor Tomb Guard did get the biggest value, though I think some of them were fighting Orion or some high-value targets, because these guys netted a lot of... They get an entire chevron there, despite the fact that they only got 16 kills, so they might have been fighting Orion. Now, for my opponent's build, I think it was a pretty clever Vanguard build, and my main critique here would be the lack of AP. If your opponent goes with... Now, granted, I know it's not common in this matchup to see, a massive AP from Tomb Kings, because, well, so many of your monsters are easy pickings for Way Watchers. But I think that in this situation, if your opponent had gone for, like, 2 Necrosphinxes or something, this build would be completely screwed. Orion isn't going to stop that. Well, I guess I should say 2 War Sphinxes, really. But, like, Orion is not going to be enough to stop that. Wild Riders aren't going to be enough to stop that. And you don't have any real great source of AP. Like Wardens of Citadel, okay. If your opponent like wanders on top of your Wardens of Citadel, they get their Armor Sundering, and then you mow them down with Swift Shards. But realistically speaking, I think if your opponent just counter aggroed here, if you had a very aggressive Tomb King play against you, it might not work out as well. I do think this build relies on the Tomb King player being a lot campier and more defensive, like what I was doing here, but I do think that's something to be wary of. Besides that, Ryan did excellent work there. I think trying to stay on top of your caster a little bit more just to get those spells when you get the opportunity would have been a little valuable. And then I think there was a little slip up there with Micro, where Oxford Style here let his Glade Riders to get shot to death by the Eyes of the Desert and the Sepulchral Stalkers, when I really think he could have been avoiding that. He could have stayed out of range. These guys have much more range than Sepulchral Stalkers do. You've got like a 70 range advantage. They could have easily been shooting into the backs of my Spears or Tomb Guard, or if they really need to be shooting into something elite, they could have gone after Katep and netted much more value there. And it just didn't happen. I also think that Bum Rush for the Shopti Great Bows ended up kind of backfiring because those Necron Horsemen were in there, and they butchered the Wild Riders, especially with those buffs flying out from Katep. So a few tactical changes there. Composition-wise, I think I'd probably cut the Swift Shiver Shards. Maybe cut. I don't know if these chevrons were gained or not, but maybe cut the 2 Swift Shiver Shards. Get rid of Foe Seeker, get rid of Melkoth's Miasma, and maybe like one of the spells. You don't need both Awakening of the Wood and Melkoth's Miasma and Penumbral Pendulum. You don't need that much damage spells. Cut a few of those. Try to get 2 Way Watchers on the field. I think if you cut those chevrons, cut the Deepwood Scouts, you could probably get 2, and then cut a few of these peripheral abilities. You could probably get 2 Way Watchers on the field. And that would have been massive in this game, where I just didn't have the tools early on to deal with these Deepwood Scouts. If instead of the Deepwood Scouts, this was Way Watchers, they could kill Katep, they could kill the Ushapti Great Bows, they could kill the Eyes of the Desert. By the time I got around to shutting them down. Hell, killing one of these would have been crucial. So, just my 2 cents there. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you found it entertaining and fun, as usual. If you enjoyed, don't hesitate to leave your likes, subscribes, comments, critiques, all that stuff down below. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.